Hello and welcome to Unleashed. I'm your host, Will Bachman, and I'm delighted to welcome today Remco Visser, who is from Saga. They have a AI product that's being used by 150 law firms. And well, we don't normally talk about the legal industry on this show. It's pretty relevant, I thought, to see how professional services firms are adopting AI. I met Remco recently at a conference, and the product seemed pretty cool. So, Remco, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Will. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we're just going to do an audio only episode, but you are sharing your screen so I can see the product. I'll give a little voiceover and narration as we look at it. And I understand you're going to give me a bit of a tour. So, maybe just first give us just a quick overview of what is Saga, what's the purpose, what does it do?
Yeah, so we are what we call now a legal AI innovation company. So we help law firms and also legal departments and tax firms with using AI. So we have an AI platform, but we also do a lot of training and adoption sessions to actually help them implement the platform. And also means that they try to connect their daily practice into AI workflows. And a lot of times maybe it's not even suitable for AI yet, and then we also explain it. And other things are, more suitable. That's what we call the viability space, where you can use AI and where you can't use AI. So we also help firms navigating that. And on the platform, you can use different large language models. I think that's the key driver of this new wave of technology. But we also have some more, I would say, standard software, some automation work in there, where you don't necessarily always need a large language model. But you can do in the platform is you can draft things, and we automatically recognize when you want to draft something, it will open in a draft window. So if I would type something like this, it will automatically recognize, hey, I'm drafting, so it will open a window where it creates an AI generated document.
Okay, hold on. And I'll just mention to users who can't see what you're doing, you just
Yeah.
typed in just draft NDA, and boom, automatically it popped up a pretty decent looking NDA with all the standard clauses that we're used to seeing, even as signature blank and everything. It's all formatted. Now it's also
Yeah.
asking you a bunch of questions like, hey, I could customize this because this is just generic. You didn't say what country or for what purpose, or are the
Yeah.
parties, is it both companies or person in a company? And it's asking you all these follow-up questions. What country state law should govern it? What's the main purpose? How long do you want it to last? So it's asking you all this stuff. This is pretty
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks. It's the
you,
newest, I think the newest updates now, also in terms of our software, but also in terms of these AI, the large language models. They also understand that you need more context. So what we've done now, indeed, I only asked to draft NDA. It's a very simple prompt, but then it
right.
understands I need much more context to actually make something pretty. So it drafts something, but then it comes back to you saying, hey, what parties do need to be in there? How long do you want the confidentiality to last? Because, the AI can guess it or you can just ask it. So that's, I think, a way of working now that we've seen that is much more efficient instead of just being what people maybe thought you need to be a prompt engineer. And now we see it's getting more like you putting a simple prompt, it kind of recognizes that it needs more context and it asks it for you. We also have what we call a prompt improver, and that's also before you actually click send. Also have this magic pencil, and if we
Yeah.
click this one, it will automatically improve the prompt for me already, and it will give me some variables where I should actually make sure to fill in the certain
Oh,
details.
now I want to read this. This is so cool. So you just said improve this prompt, and all you did was say draft NDA, and you click the magic pencil, and now it's saying act as a legal professional, drafting a non-disclosure agreement for jurisdiction, fill in the blank. The NDA should be suitable for use between party A and party B regarding the protection of confidential information describe subject matter or project. You fill that in. And then it keeps on going. So it's another couple sentences I won't read, but it took yours and expanded it into a full, like, professional prompt that you can fill in the blanks. And
Yeah.
so make like you don't need to be a prompt engineer to your point. It's doing that work for you, and you just have to know how to answer the questions.
Yeah, exactly. And there's simple things like people sometimes forget to put in the jurisdiction. And if it's, of
Yeah.
course, if it's in English, it can be a lot of languages actually, or a lot of countries actually that use this AI tool, but also in Spanish, because we have a lot of Spanish
Right.
customers in Latin America, or in Portuguese, are they either in Brazil or in Portugal. So it's important to give this kind of context. So we also, yeah, we use the prompt improver to add this type of context. And if you have a very good prompt, you can also store it into your prompt library. So
Oh,
that's very
nice.
helpful. That you can make your own personal prompts, that you can favorite them, and you can also publish them with the whole organization. So you can maybe find 10, 20 nice prompts that are tested and that are, well used all the time. And we also have what we call the Saga Lab, and those are the prompts we share with everyone,
Mm.
uh, with all of our customers to make sure that they get some inspiration from this.
All right. So I can see how valuable that is. So you can draft things, and the NDA was pretty basic, but what are some examples of things that an attorney might use this to help draft up? What kind of use cases have you seen?
I don't like the NDA example anymore, actually, but in this simple example, it still works. We've
Yeah.
seen a lot of differences. I think when you ask it to draft something from scratch, it's relatively generic. So of course, it will give you something that even someone who doesn't have legal experience can prompt it. The better way of using it is when you say, for example, create let's say a letter of intent, right, for maybe a transaction, and you would also say, here's all the context of the transaction, and here is a template that I can use.
Yeah.
So I could actually show it to this live in the meantime when we're talking. I can ask for a assessment when I will try to
Mm.
do it. Run a prompt, and then I would ask it to give me some insights into this project or into this transaction. And I'm gonna quickly do
And
that.
while you're doing that, I'll narrate. So you pulled up a prompt from the library to say draft this letter of intent, and then you pulled up added a bunch of documents that were for that particular transaction. Um, so now
Yeah,
it's just spitting out like a complete, full document here, that is based on all those documents you added. Right.
yeah, exactly. So it will give you all the information about this deal around, for example, when is the letter of intent signed or sent, or what is the duration of the due diligence, and it will also give you citations on where it found that information. So it
Yeah.
highlights a piece in the text. And what I can also do now, that's the example I wanted to give. Now I can say maybe based on all this content, draft a letter of intent based on the content
Uh-huh.
above, and also use the attached template as the basis. So now I can
Oh, I
upload
see.
an extra document. I already have a template, and now
Right.
it will stick to it instead of kind of thinking its own clauses. It will now start drafting something that you can use like with 25 clauses in there.
Okay. All right.
And this is exactly like I wanted to. So there's an example where you try to have a template already, and that you can kind of maybe fill in with the necessary details. And you could also ask it questions like, of course, make a review either from the buyer or the seller. You can ask it to review according to a certain playbook, so with fallback positions and things you want to have in there. Or you could download it to Word and go to directly in Word and ask it to give you red lines or like a review.
Oh, oh, that's amazing. So you can have it redline if the other party sends you an agreement, master service agreement, you can redline it.
I could say review this based on this template, or I could say more simple prompt like identify non-buyer friendly clauses and suggest changes to make them more buyer friendly. Just like I would say an exploration question to see what's in here, what's actually maybe harming your client.
Mm,
And there it will start seeing what's in here. It will say that where there's a deferred payment condition in section 6. Let me jump
yeah,
there. And it will actually say maybe you want to add some things that it helps the buyer. So I can
yeah.
choose to apply this as a track change or even a
Oh,
track
nice.
change with a comment. And if I
Yeah.
do this, it will change it in the text for me and it will also explain in the comment like, hey, this narrows the seller's ability to withhold deferred payment, protecting the buyer from frivolous or unsubstantiated claims.
Mm,
And I can even say, like, you know what, I actually like all of these examples. Let me apply all of them with a comment and a track change. And the system will just do the work for me. I can just do something else, get a coffee, and then it will redline the whole document. And then it can
right.
see, you can still, of course, be in charge of what changed. So that's a big issue usually when you start using AI, when you start using large language models. You put in a document, you ask it to do something, and then you download something back, and you miss the formatting, and you don't know what changed.
Right.
So
So
in
this
this,
is actually you can see the Saga window is on the right, but we're actually in Microsoft Word and you can see it adding with it track changes on, you can see all the changes being made with the comments and the track changes, lineouts and stuff. So allows you to track that. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
Um, and so I imagine it can also draft, for all sorts of legal stuff, like beyond just contractual things. If you're litigating, you probably can track like various submissions or
yeah.
responses or letters to the court, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. What you usually see how our users use it is they start maybe a project.
Yeah.
And in the project, you can get multiple documents together, and you can also share that project with colleagues.
Mm.
So if I have a lot of merger agreements, for example, or maybe a litigation, I open this and I get some documents here, maybe a statement of defense, a statement of reply, a notice for arbitration, and I can ask all types of questions to these type of documents. So maybe first there's things like give me a detailed timeline, give me a really nice framework of what's happening here, and then you can maybe draft arguments, or draft memos, draft letters. And what's cool, we also have what we call assistants, and those are predetermined roles. It's something you can make here in the platform. We have examples, but you can also make your own as a firm, where our best used one is, for example, the devil's advocate. So it will
Huh.
challenge you on your arguments. So if you are in a litigation, you can immediately kind of challenge yourself on what is probably coming back on me. Where do I make maybe assumptions? Where do I miss maybe a statute or a case law? So you can actually challenge yourself quite quickly. And we've also seen all this already happening where they get, where people get responses from opposing counsel, and they immediately put it to the devil's advocate to just get a quick head start of what should your strategy be. And of course, you need to be a bit careful. We see now with AI being, taking some of the cognitive work away. So we really challenge our users to make sure that you don't use it like full on automation, but really as more like assisting. It will assist you all the time in your work, but it doesn't take over the work. So make sure you are still in charge, and you also make sure that you have your own, let's say, cognitive, yeah, let's say your brain is still working, and don't outsource it only to the AI systems. So make sure
So
it's only recording and not taking over.
these assistants is fascinating. So you have sort of already crafted these roles, and I'll read out some of them: contract assistant, or take on the role of a paralegal, or a legal research assistant, or what are some of the other ones? Scroll up so I can see some of the other
We have
ones.
the tax authority, maybe
Tax authority, judge, legal assistant, M&A assistant, prompt guru. So you can ask it to take on that personality and respond, oh, as a proofreader, respond as a proofreader. And then it's going to focus just on typos and not on uh, the law or whatever. So
exactly.
expert legal writing assistant for lawyers. Um,
Yeah.
that's pretty neat. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of people, what you hear is, and even some attorneys getting in trouble because they use just plain old ChatGPT and it hallucinates and then it makes up case references and stuff. So talk to me about the safeguards and the databases that Saga has access to that helps eliminate that risk.
Yeah, so I think what hallucination is, of course, something that's made up, but also something that you can check with like a source of truth, so like a ground truth. Because sometimes there are opinions, right? Sometimes there are things that people don't even agree on. But if you can really see that maybe an AI system thought of something that is factually not true, you can see it in a database that it's untrue. That's usually what we call an hallucination. And it depends a lot on the situation where you are in. So what we really try to mitigate is that you put in, for example, your own documents into a project or into the chat in your own context, and then you ask questions about those documents. Then it should really not hallucinate. It should really understand, like, hey, this is my context and my database I'm searching for, true. It can't kind of think of something else than that. So we instructed it to go, looking mostly at those documents. We put the creativity of AI models lower, that's what you call the temperature. And we have citations to check and some reasoning models that you can actually reason through things to see if things are correct. And that mitigates most of the hallucinations from your direct documents. But there's still the question of, let's say you work on in a closed environment and you don't select any database and you work with an AI model, it's still what we call pre-trained. So it's trained up until a certain moment in time. So the most recent things are not included in the training set. And we don't even really know what's in the training set because the AI labs are not open about it. So you shouldn't ask factual questions to just an AI model. You should maybe upload your documents first and then ask the factual questions that are in those documents, or you can connect it within Saga to a database. So now we have mostly European case law in different countries. We also have some things in Mexico now and Brazil, and some with some publishers in Norway, where you can find information from those databases, and then it also mitigates the risk of hallucinations. But of course, it's generative AI. It generates something, so it might never be perfect. But of course, it gets closer and closer to at least the most obvious mistakes that a human would easily pick out Those are being I would say deleted. We also have a neat trick that we are building now that you can also check the citations in sense of, let's say you make like in Europe you have these ECLI numbers. That's like a number for a case that's been through the court. So what if Saga spits out a number like that? We can automatically just check it in the database whether it exists and maybe highlight or flag it like, hey, it doesn't exist. And the most obvious challenge there is to make sure you have all that data. And there's a lot of data in in Europe even, but also in the world of looking at all these databases. So that's going to be, of course, a challenge where we have to see on how much we can keep adding. So we have now some sources, and if we look at different ones are this in the other environment. So, like I said, we have most of it in Europe and also some in Latin America. And we also have some translation functionality where you can do immediate translations with full document translate, for example.
Mm.
So it helps to work in different languages.
And I think that you said that you can kind of choose which of the models that you're using to write stuff. Is that right? Like you can, it's right. The default here is ChatGPT 5.1 right now, but you could also shift it over and say, no, write using Claude or Mistral or
Yeah,
one of the other ones, Gemini.
yeah, exactly. So it depends a bit on the setup of the firm, on what they like to have as like, yeah, they are a SIP processor. So the models from OpenAI run in an Azure, Microsoft Azure cloud. It's the easiest kind of improvement for working with AI. And then you can start adding more models. And we also train people in what are the best models. Um, and I see now a lot of people like Claude Sonnet 4.5, most for drafting and coding, but people don't really code on our platform. But indeed, we are what we call large language model agnostic. So we can
Mhm.
always pull in the best ones available and also the ones that the customer likes.
Interesting. Now, I'm not sure if you share it publicly. If you don't, it's fine. You can tell me, but can you talk a little bit about like the pricing or how you structure the pricing, or is it per seat or per, uh, tokens used or
Yeah, we just charge it per seat per month. So it's relatively understandable, and it's 125 euros per user per month.
okay. All right.
So it's yeah, I think it's doable in the sense of what the type of value add you get from it. Because we
Hmm.
had some of course some surveys with some of our customers, and they save at least 4 to 5 hours a week. And we saw that 98% of them saw an improvement in their quality of their work, especially the
Huh.
juniors, because were able to proofread themselves. So we think it's a no-brainer, but of course there are challenges when it comes to implementing new software when you want to have change within the company, and of course we have a lot of competition now getting into the market.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people are talking about how do you actually get implement these tools and train people on them and so forth. So let's say a firm is saying, oh, this looks like a good tool, and they go ahead and sign up. They get a seat for every one of their employees. How do you work with them, or what are your recommendations for firms on how to make sure it gets adopted and people are using the tool?
Yeah, so we have usually two options. We either tell the firm like you can start with a smaller group, then we prefer like 15 to 20
Okay.
people with all ages, all practice groups, just bring people together. And then we do usually 4 to 5 training sessions where we start more general about introduction, what is AI, what is Saga, and then we go more towards prompting. Then we go towards workflows, like what are our actual processes in the day, and then we try to connect those. And then we're also then gonna talk about these databases, so the legal databases that we can add, but you can also make your own internal data sources within Saga. So if I would open this one here, if you want to select a legal database that you want to search through, you can also make your own internal sources. And there you can see some stuff where you can select a database to kind of talk to. So we also help the users to kind of navigate on that and explain what happens. And then in the last session, we usually kind of bring everything together. We do a fun quiz, and we make sure that people understand a bit on how things work. And we have a lot of exercises during the training sessions. So they have kind of almost like homework, but then during the session to do things, right? To make summarizations, to do a translation, to make maybe to click on the devil's advocate, to test your arguments, and really the life. I think having them exercise with it, this really helps. Um, So that's the first option with the smaller group, but we can also do the same program with the whole firm. But then usually in session 3 or 4, we kind of bring people together in groups. So we say, hey, let's bring 1 or 2 practice groups together, and you now together go work on some prompts or some AI use cases, some brainstorming on what it actually is possible with AI. And then we have them kind of bring in the information to the group instead of individually. So that also works quite well. So I don't think one is really better than the other, especially for the introduction program that we call it. And usually after that, we try to go more into depth. So we go into a specific area of law and let's see maybe real estate. And then we bring the people from the team together and we see what's happening. We also usually bring someone from Saga who is also with a legal background. So they are what we call now legal engineers, preferably also in that area of law, but we can't always have everyone in every language.
Oh,
But at least have some knowledge on the topic. So make sure that we can actually build cool stuff. And then we can immediately apply it on the Saga platform. Store it in the prompt library, store it in a grid review template, or in the workflow library. So maybe I can show you one more thing in the
yeah.
project where we can do like a due diligence. So I have here a project with some documents. I can work with all of them or deactivate some of them, and I can also make what we call a grid review. And in a grid review, we can extract information very structurally. So let's say I have a due diligence for an IT supplier.
Huh.
I have a template here. It's about intellectual property, about the liability, about the change of control, the guarantees and indemnities, the termination right, the renewal and the termination date, and the liability amount. If I would say now use template, you will see this grid starts filling with, these are only 50 answers, but it takes a few seconds, where it will immediately extract information from the documents and explains what's happening in there. So in the first cell about IP, it will actually tell you, well, there is a risk when it comes to IP because the custom work does not fully belong to the supplier. Okay. So in this way, you can very easily extract information and also review information.
Hmm. Wow, this is really powerful. I mean, this kind of idea would be relevant in a lot of consulting contexts as well. Being able to do a kind of a grid review of some document or set of documents.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
definitely when they are relatively similar documents, then
Yeah.
let's say you have a very long amount of lease agreements, or you have a bunch of Chamber of Commerce extractions, or you have shareholders agreements, merger agreements. It can be any type of documents, and you want to structurally extract clauses or findings. And again, it will, with citation, it will highlight the part where it found the information from. So not
Hmm.
only do you get an answer, you also get like the context around it. So now I see immediately the 150,000 euros here as the liability amount. If I click on the citation, I see it highlighted in the text, but then I
Uh-huh.
also see exactly around it, like, okay, it's about 12 months preceding the event with an absolute maximum of 150K. So now I also get more insights than just a number, right? So this way you get insights very quickly instead of manually going through every document.
That's great. So, Remco, for listeners who want to find out more about Saga, where do you point them online?
Yeah, we go to sagalegal.io
Okay,
and of course
fantastic.
my LinkedIn. It's Remco Visser, Remco with a
Okay.
C, so that's Remco. And then Visser is the Dutch way of spelling it because I'm now in Amsterdam. I'm from the Netherlands, and that's Visser.
All right. We'll include that link in the show notes.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome.
Remco, thank you for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me.